Hi everyone. Hi everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Power of Knowing Forums. Join the C-Suite Talk live event 183. Today we are on the discussion of authentic leadership in action, inspiring growth in rapid changing world. To have this topic discussed, we have the honor of Rahul Gupta, founder and head coach Transform Ahead. Without further ado, let's bring our esteemed speaker onto the podcast. Hi Rahul.
Hey, hi Prem. Hi, good evening.
Good evening. How are you, sir?
Doing well. How are you doing?
Great, Rahul. Thank you for being part of the podcast today. And a small intro about yourself, Rahul, so that we have a better understanding for the audience to have your view on and your journey across.
Sure, Prem. And first of all, thanks a lot for inviting me to this platform. And I've seen the growth of this platform, and this is phenomenal. Uh, just a bit about me. I have got close to 22 plus years of work experience now between corporate and coaching. I have worked close to 2 decades in the corporate sector across various roles. Half of that has been into management consulting and half into corporate leadership roles. In my last role, I was the function head for mergers and acquisition for Tech Mahindra. Prior to that, I worked with firms like Cognizant, Ernst& Young, Deloitte, Accenture, and so on. Last 4 years, almost now, we are going to complete 4 years with Transform Ahead. And
Mhm.
we have transformed quite a number of lives, I will say, not just career or just leadership aspects. And with 3,000 plus hours of coaching experience, I think things are going to just look northwards for us. And we are very happy, that uh, we are seeing that change happening in people after they go through the engagement and so on. So yeah, that's where we stand now, and I'm hoping 2025 turns out to be good for everybody.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that. Great insights. 3,000 hours of training is an amazing piece of work that you people have been doing of Transform Ahead. Well, coming to our topic, uh, what does authentic leadership mean to you, and how has that shaped the careers of people and yourself in specific, Rahul?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Prem. Now let me take a step back here, okay, before I jump and define what is authentic leadership. There are two words, right? It's authentic and leadership. First of all, leadership is all about 10% about you and 90% about the others, right? So a person who leads other, sorry, I think it's breaking up. Am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are.
Okay. Let me go again. So it's a combination of two words, authentic and leadership. A leader is a person who is 10% about himself or herself and then 90% about others. So if you are leading others, obviously then you will be a leader, right? It's not an individual contributor role, first of all. Number
Mm,
two, when I say authentic, what is authentic? Authentic is not putting a mask in front of you. Unfortunately, the way corporate works, Prem, people put a lot of different masks as they engage with different kind of stakeholder and people, right? But only those people who come across as genuine, right? And it's a very touch and feel thing. When you are genuine in your approach, in your language, in your purpose, in your values, people realize that even if that person is stripped of their title, they are authentic, they are genuine, they are who they are, what they say they do, right? When we mix up these two things, right, we call this as authentic leadership. So somebody who is open, vulnerable, who in any situation comes across as a person of who he is rather than putting so many different masks. I think that's what authentic leadership means to me. And for me, I have, I had the pleasure of working with a number of senior corporate leaders at CXO levels and above. And I have seen different people. Those leaders actually made a deep impact in my conscience, where I found this authenticity, right? Where I knew that what they are saying and what they are doing, there is hardly any gap in between, right? And that's validated through a journey. That cannot be a single point, even like a balance sheet where we say one point in time that this is how it stands. No, it's a journey. You observe that leader over a period of time and you know that, okay, these are some of the attributes of an authentic leader, and obviously that impacts us and it has shaped the way I am. In fact, people I worked with closely as my team members, they also know that what Rahul says and what he does, they don't find a gap. So I feel somehow connected to this word, authentic leadership.
I think that's a very valid point. I've heard a lot of people telling that leadership is not about titles, right? So titles define what you were mentioning a point saying that whether you are there at this one or you're not at that position or stuff where you said people are genuine. That's what leadership is what about, right? It's a trust that we
Yes.
build looking at a leader not with its title, right? Can you share a moment when embracing authenticity transformed a challenging situation? Is there anything that you can put
Yes.
up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example from my mergers and acquisitions life. When I was doing deals day in, day out, I was meeting a lot of counterparty, right? We were predominantly on the buy side, and then, people on the sell side, they wanted to make sure that with the passion that they created an organization, a company, if they have to sell it to a buyer, the buyer also need to be having those kind of intention where they take care of the company, they take care of the people, because there's a lot of passion that goes in in building a organization, building a firm. So in one of those situation, I remember, right, when the counterparty, they asked me a lot of questions. Hey, what will happen after the buyout? How you'll handle this? How you'll handle that? They were trying to solve every problem on the same day. Okay. And truly speaking, I didn't have an answer to that. Now I could have been a smart ass by saying that, I'll do this, I'll do that, etc. But it would have been putting again a mask of showing that I am the smartest guy in the room. I'll go and solve every problem. Instead, I think what I did was I just told them, you know what, this is you are asking a question which are all valid question, but why not we work together and find what is best for both of us and try to define a future state which works for you and your people as well as for us.
Hmm.
So I think that transformed the mindset of the counterparty, thinking that okay, these guys are open, these guys are not closed, they are not coming with a high-handed approach that since I'm the buyer, I'll dictate the terms. They are open to having conversation. We converted that deal also. So I think that is where authentic leadership came up, right? Where you show your vulnerability that you don't have all the answers.
Yeah. So, and you made another important point is that leaders don't need to know everything. Also, they don't need answers for it. They'll find answers when there is a challenge. That's what I
Right.
feel leadership is, and you need to bring the right resources for us to understand. Sometimes what I see, Rahul, is that we don't know the answer, but we can get an answer with kind of a help because
Yes.
most of the people don't ask right questions to get an answer. So I think that's where the whole leadership game changes, where we say you ask the right questions. And uh, I was looking at a very small problem. I'll illustrate that problem there. We were talking about some issue on a certificate part for SSL side,
Mhm.
right? It was a very small issue, but people were looking at it in a different way, saying that you should have, I'll have one certificate and use it for multiple things, and they were trying it with multiple options. When I asked him how many certificates are you having and how many links are you trying to look at, they said, sir, we have one, but we are trying to have it for four links. I asked
Mhm.
him what is the logic behind it, because if it is a wildcard certificate, you can have it dot
Mhm.
say Prem star dot star or star Prem
Okay.
dot star. So if I have that as a wildcard, whatever name comes under star and this one with Prem, that certificate can be applied. But if I have said prem.com is one site that has a certificate and issued for that, it will not work for others. So when
Yeah.
I asked him that, then he says, sir, we are trying to have different names with four links. They are
Okay.
not same. Then I said, one certificate will work for one. So
Hmm.
generate four certificates and try. It was 10 minutes fix, which were they were working for the whole day. Because
Right.
I want to bring this example because right question at that time. How are you trying to do? When
Correct.
we are able to understand that point, we are able to see that four things can be solved in different certificates and we got out of the problem. Now, looking at that kind of a thing, how do you foster trust and connections in a hybrid or remote environment? Because currently that's a bigger challenge, right? So, what is your
Yeah.
take? Rob?
Yeah, I think whenever I talk to professionals, somebody is working 2 days from office, 3 days from home, or somebody is like 5 days from home.
Yeah.
In fact, I have people living close by who are like permanently remote as well, right?
Mm,
Now the
mm,
challenge with remote, and I remember pre-COVID era because that was my corporate life, and I love to go to office and mingle with people. So trust, a lot of intimacy was anyways there, right? Which is missing in this hybrid or remote environment because that's how now things are, and leaders need to adapt to these kind of changes also, right? It's important that leaders go with the trend how it is and then follow that. Now the touch and feel is not there, but I think ensuring that everybody gets a chance to talk, right? Even in a meeting which is happening, a 60-minute meeting,
mm,
a leader should make sure that there is equity in the room, right? Irrespective of what title of the person is, how senior they are, how longer they are in the organization, and so on. If a leader maintains that equity in the room, I think trust building happens by default. And leaders' job is to ensure that environment is created and then just move out of that. Let people talk to themselves, each other, and foster that kind of communication and bonding, right? But they have to set the stage so that uh, it becomes like a fertile ground for this trust building and bonding between the team members. That's how I think you have to deal within the remote environment will have challenges, no doubt about it. uh, One thing I'll say is, if there is budget, if there is funds, please do bring people in person through an offsite or something where you do some amount of team building activities, etc. Because that makes a huge difference. After those kind of things are done, people go back with happy memories, and they know, if they had some kind of impression about somebody because of the distance they had, those barriers gets broken, and then people connect much easily. In fact, I also did one more thing, Prem. Whenever
mm.
I used to get into a new role, I will take permission from my boss and go to different locations and meet people. Okay,
Yeah.
create that bond and then carry on the work. So work always comes after you have built a relationship. Sometimes it's in parallel also, but yeah, if ideally if you can before that. So
I'll take one point. This is way back in my one organization where I spent 13 years, and I had a very
mhm.
large team, about 400 people reporting to me across the globe. So, how do we ensure that we had this bonding? What you said rightly is, I could not travel all the location that I was there, but I could travel to some of the locations in India, at least in specific,
Yeah.
like Chennai, Hyderabad, Pune, Bombay, Delhi, and Calcutta. So what we used to do is we used to combine some of the uh, weekends as a kind of outing days. So whenever I was in Chennai, I used to tell the Chennai team to let's book a resort somewhere for a one day. Morning we'll go,
Mhm.
or we go in the night and come back in the morning, have a campfire. And so we ensure that the teams celebrated the kind of time that they had with the leaders. So we bring in the leaders who can not stay night there. It's okay, but they come in the morning, spend some time, understand. You'll not believe, Raul, with that kind of engagement, people
Mm.
opening up and the suggestions that we used to get were amazing. And
Yeah.
problems that they used to talk, and they used to talk to each other, which they never used to do when they were in the office or somewhere. They used to say, you have a problem here, let's look at this problem. I have faced this problem, let's look at it. By the end of the day, I would have seen about 5 to 6 problems that were running for a long time would have got solved there, and they will go implement post the discussion. Your point is valid. That's where I'm saying is, we used to take that bonding out when it is not a project. We never used to talk projects outside the office. When this gathering happens, they come out of that mindset. They talk about themselves, personal life. This is what we did, sir. This is where I went, sir. This is what happened, and all this stuff. Suddenly, there's a problem that happens, and suddenly they say, "I had a problem. Whom should I talk?" Without you asking, they'll come to you, and then you say,
Correct.
"Hey, this guy is here only. You talk to him." That's how I think what we built was, you made a very valid point where we said, bring those people, that gap of understanding goes off. There are a lot of silos which get broken, right? So that trust I had built in all the team members that I had. In sense, I did not do anything. I brought them together. That's all. I
Exactly.
stayed with them.
Exactly.
Yeah. I stayed with them. I just asked what is that you are doing and stuff. Then many of the things came up. Now, what is one common misconception about authentic leadership that you debunked through the experience?
Yeah, see, authentic leaders doesn't mean that that person is like he's god, he or she is
Yeah.
god, right? uh, they are as human as anybody else. They have their own issues, right?
Hmm.
Both on the professional side as well as personal side, right? But they always put people on top and keep their things behind, perhaps something which is not visible to others, because if they are genuine, they are authentic, people trust them so much, right? They always expect very highly of them also. That's
Yeah.
another burden that authentic leaders carry on their shoulders, that they are like role models to so many different people, right? But they have their usual issues as well, which they have to balance. They also suffer from work life balance issues like anybody else. So we should treat them like human, even though they are role models, right? And expect that they will have bad days. They will have days where they want their own space to recover out of that. And we should, give that privacy to them, that, okay, let's not disturb him or her on that day where he is not looking perfect. So I
Yeah.
think that, uh, you know, and I have lived that way where I have also, told my team members saying that, hey, today I'm not feeling at my best. This is not the best time you should engage with me. Give me my own space. And my team has respected that also, Prem.
Understood, understood. Now, looking at that, see, today things are changing at a very, very, very rapid pace, right? And some of the challenges and strategies that leaders need in that
Hmm.
times, in that times of rapid change, what are strategies help leaders maintain clarity while they keep inspiring their teams?
Yeah. So, see, things are changing very fast. No
Yeah,
doubt about it, right? Shelf life of any technology which comes into play. Earlier, it used to be 10, 12 years. Then it's come down to 3 to 5 years now, right?
right.
Uh, Digital was the buzzword during entire COVID. Now, who talks about digital? It's all AI and ML and these kind of stuff going on. Now people are switching into quantum computing, by the way, when they are talking, right? Cyber security, quantum computing and stuff. So yes, that's happening. And I think leaders need to be adaptive to these changes, right? Rather than thinking or going with a mindset of know all kind of thing. They should also have their upskilling plans, by the way, right? uh,
Mhm.
some amount of touch with technical and functional area that you have been an expert on at some point of time. I think that flair you will have to carry through, whereas general management becomes the key, the key skills to develop as and when you take higher and more senior leadership role. Plus, over a period of time, I think leaders have that, what should I say, the access to different kind of stakeholders like analysts, for example, right? Uh, I used to get into calls with analysts like Gartners and Foresters of the world.
Mhm.
Now, you get so much of insights from them of what's happening in the industry, what's coming your way. So when you strategize things for yourself, for the organization, for your team, you now have a lot of proprietary information also coming your way. So
Yeah.
knowing how to engage, how to utilize that data, how to read the trend, how to be a little more foresighted, I think that has to be baked into your day-to-day leadership aspects, while not losing focus to your technical and functional aspects also, because that has been bread and butter for you, that has kept you in the job. You carry on, but balance out the two aspects, the future and the past, and bring it together.
Good insight there. At times, leaders become vulnerable, right? And that at times they look at that overcoming of that vulnerability.
Mhm.
How do they come out of that vulnerability as a leader led to growth, and the team's understanding that vulnerability, saying that this has helped us or this is where we look at? Any pointers there, Rahul?
Yeah. So see, it's obvious. Everybody goes through that sine curve,
Yeah.
right? And there will be phases where you are vulnerable. You feel, you know, uh, I mean, the seat is on fire because of different things happening, right? And I also feel one thing about leadership. Leadership is also about making informed bets. Okay,
Mm.
when we put strategy in place, not everything will be just data crunching and putting strategy. It has to be data as well as how, as a leader, you have navigated things in the past. That also gives you some sort of indicator of what will work in the future. So when you bring data and this kind of approach where uh, the inner feel about what can happen, when you bring this together, I think that creates some sort of tool for the leaders so that they can handle uncertainty, right?
Mm.
Having
Mm.
said that, you make bets in the market, you think about certain strategic initiatives, some will play out, some won't play out.
Okay.
And if in certain times most of your bets are not playing out, you will feel vulnerable,
Right.
right? So
I
it is
think
important.
it's a very important point you said, right? We we get vulnerable when you think something is not working out for us, and that's where we feel that scarcity of, oh, I don't know this, or will I be not able to do this. That's the pointer where you start feeling vulnerable. Am I right in saying that, Ron?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. See, when things are going great, you are always confident, and I
Yeah.
don't see people will feel vulnerable. Only when things are going bad, you start questioning or having those self doubt. And it's obvious as a human, you will have that also. And there are other pressures also, right? There are bosses who will put pressures, and they have their own bosses as well. Finally, it's the board, it's the shareholder. So you are answerable end of the day as a leader, right? And you are answerable not just on the upward side but even on the downward side, because your team responsibility, who is responsible for the team, it's you. So there is a lot of this plays, and sometimes overthinking happens as well. That time it's very important that leaders also take a pause, a moment to reflect and think, hey, is it something that I am just overthinking? Am I doing what is supposed to be done? So actions and small wins leads to this vulnerability going away. I think those are important aspects. You take action, you make small wins and keep progressing.
Very valid point. Today, I was part of a Cloud Security Alliance summit in Bangalore, Whitefield. So I met one person who's from the cybercrime side. Okay,
Hmm.
and he asked the audience one good question about saying that how many people are scared about police. So
Hmm.
most of them said, "Yeah, we are scared." Everybody lifted. He asked me, "Why are you scared?" Then most of them didn't have an answer. But what he said, in school, if you go and see, if you don't do homework, you're scared of your teacher, right? That's where you are scared of your teacher. Now, why you look at a police and you are getting scared is because something is wrong. Either you don't have a document, or you jumped a signal or something like that, or you've done something which you think you'll be caught. So that's why people scare police. Otherwise, police is not a scary thing. I'm not in the uniform, so now you don't look at me. When you see look at me, you don't get scared. But if I'm in a uniform, you will definitely have something. Oh, this guy is a police. So
Yeah.
that's a very important point that I wanted to say. Vulnerability comes there, where we see I'm scared of something. Now, with vulnerability, how can leaders balance the empathy with the need of driving the performance?
Yeah, it's a very difficult balance to maintain, right? One side you feel for the people, on the
Mm,
other side you will have to drive performance, and sometimes you will have to push people very hard to get to
yeah,
that performance,
right.
right? And people like to label leaders also, right? That he's this kind of person, that kind of person, based on how things are going at that point of time. Now there are two things, Prem. One is, if you're n minus one, which means the next level of leaders that they report into you, for example,
Mm,
if those people, you have built those solid trustful relations, right? And they know that you are an authentic person. If you are asking them to work for 14 hours, for example, on a particular day,
mm,
there is a genuine need for that,
yeah,
and people won't question that, right? But
100%.
for yeah, but for that, you should have invested your time and effort as a leader to build that bridge with your n minus one, right?
I take that point, Rahul, because I'll go back again to my previous days in that large organization where we worked on predominantly banking projects. We put the CBSs onto the implementation of the major of the banks in India, and Africa, India, Africa, Middle East regions, some part in Europe as well. Now,
Sure.
banking is one thing which is OLTP. It is immediate, right? You withdraw cash, you need to get a message. You put something, you have to get a message. There's a lot of things that we used to do. But while we build that systems, the testing phases were only in the evenings, because you cannot do
Mhm.
it in the business hours. If I have to do a feature, I have to do it after business hours. And after business hours, also after taking a successful backup. That happens when the banks close. Banks close at 6 o'clock. They take
Okay.
backups after that. Then their EOD happens, end of the day happens. Then the reconciliation for the next day to start business happens. Between that period is you have that time. And we had
Sure.
to have people to do that extra work at that piece of time. And we normally used to be between 11:30 in the night to 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. And we
Mhm.
had to sit there. And people used to be, as you rightly said, we had that kind of luxury to say we'll have to work on this, and this is what we used to test. And people, you rightly said, is if you invest on them, they'll invest in you.
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
a very valid point, Rahul. I take 100% on that. Now, looking at that, what piece of advice would you wish you had received about learning through the uncertainty piece?
Yeah, see, uncertainty is a difficult period, right, for
Yeah,
anybody
yeah,
because you don't know what's going to happen next, right? There are a lot of ifs and buts which is going around,
yeah.
which creates, I mean, it clouds your mind basically, right?
Mm,
So at that time, I think having a powerful mentor who can guide you to an extent, right, where can show the way also, that
mm,
really helps because your mind is clouded, and when your judgment is clouded, you need to take help and support from
yeah,
other people, right? I think there has been many moments, but my personality has been I will never keep quiet. Okay, if things are going good, I will talk. If things are going bad, I will talk.
okay.
And that also creates an opportunity for people who are senior to me to give me that kind of piece of advice saying, hey Rahul, you need to think in this direction or think that way, etc. So early on I have got a lot of advice, but at some point of time I had to transform myself
Hmm.
where I am self-sufficient, number one, and
Okay.
people look for that support from me rather than I thinking that I'll keep taking advice from others. So you have to step up at some point of time and forget that, hey, there are people above you who will guide you. Rather, you
Hmm.
become the guide to others. I think that is where the transition of leadership happens from being an individual contributor to a mid management to a senior management person. That's the journey everyone has to make.
And as you climb the ladder, you become alone. That's another problem
Yes,
that you have.
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And with that, what are some of the top qualities that make a leader stand out in today's competitive world? Because everybody is competing for something or the other. How do we have that leader standout happening?
Yeah. So first of all, I think it's important to be self-aware. I
Hmm.
think leadership starts with self-awareness. People who don't understand themselves well, they suffer from a lot of blind spots. Okay, and they make obvious mistakes.
Hmm.
So that is where I think even coaching helps. Senior leaders require as much coaching as a mid-level manager because those blind spots gets identified, and then you get discuss about it, and then you create plans to overcome them, right? So one is self-awareness, which is very important. Second is your ability to engage with senior stakeholders, because as you move up the ladder, I think the quality of engagement with senior stakeholder also needs to improve. You instead of talking to somebody at your level, you need to think about the board. You have to think about analysts, investors, you know, earning calls. If you get an opportunity to represent your company, those are the kind of things you should start thinking about and grooming yourself up, right? That visibility is very important for leadership in current times, because if people don't see you, they don't believe you as well, right? Especially
Hmm.
in the times of crisis, you have to show up, you have to be there. But visibility also should not be like a one time event. It's a journey. You do it gradually. I think people accept you much more rather than shine one day and then you disappear the next day. So some of these aspects I think people should explore, but not as a one-time activity, but as a continuous journey. Plus, lastly, I'll say is, as a leader, you need to you need to be vulnerable, you need to be authentic, you need to connect with your people, right?
Hmm.
If you are using just authority to drive decision making, or asking people to just follow you because you have the authority, I think at some point of time you are going to lose it, right? But if you have created that referent power, which means people actually look up to you as a leader, they will do 10 times more than what you expect from them, and that will be your success. So that's very important.
See, very valid points there. Nothing to disagree. Okay, very very valid points. How do you resist kind of changes that happen in your team or organization? Because again, change in team is becoming a alarming or concerning pointer of late. So change in team, how do we resist? First is internal, and also look at people leaving organizations, right? The change happens when people leave also. That affects the organizations. How to handle resistance to change in your team or organization? Your
Yeah,
views on.
that's a genuine problem every leader faces. Okay, and believe me, whatever said and done, if people want to move out, okay,
Hmm, hmm,
it has happened with me. For example, one of my bright teammate, I fought with the HR to get him a higher rating because I felt he deserved it. Okay, for the
hmm,
work.
hmm,
And after the rating, after 1 month down the line, he said, "I'm leaving for this organization." Okay.
hmm,
Initially I felt like, okay, I fought for you, but then I just kind of stepped back. I said, okay. Then I asked him, what is the compensation, benefit, etc. you are getting? And
hmm,
he said, this much. Then I said, okay, great, please take the offer.
hmm.
Okay, and if you find a role for me, please also tell me. Okay, I just jokingly said. And by
Okay.
the way, you won't believe, next 5 years, every year, every 6 months, he will give me a call. Rahul, there is an opening for this senior leadership role in my company. Would you like to join? He took that literally. Okay,
Okay. Okay.
but it's nice of him. But the point I'm trying to say, Prem, is the person who has to go,
True.
right? But you leave that, I mean, the person should leave with a positive impression about the experience, both the the experience they carry plus the exit experience that they have,
Yeah.
because that also influences the team morale, right?
Hmm, hmm.
And I keep telling my team, in fact, one thing I used to follow in my team, Prem, was every 2 years I'll push them out. I'll say, now you have done enough with me, go and do something else,
Yeah.
take more challenges. So I think that's how you build that culture of change from day one, that don't let people be very comfortable doing one thing over and over for the next 5 years. They will not grow. In your selfish interest, you want to keep them, but you have to push your birds out of the nest, right? The babies out of the nest.
I think that's a very valid point because 13 years as I was there in that organization, teams used to change because everybody wanted to grow as a 13 year. If I have taken a fresher, if he completes 13 years with my tenure, he cannot be a fresher there, right? So he'll
Sure.
grow to a lead from a consultant, then to a lead, then to a manager and stuff like that. So what we started looking at, you made a very valid point, Raul, is that while I was in that organization, we started elevating people as they grow. So we started telling you have your primary skills, then you have your secondary skills, bring those people, new people under those skills so that you have a team. Then you start looking at you managing a team. Then as you manage a team, then you start looking at the division of that part, that department you'll take care. Say, if it is server storage, in those days it was server storage. So
Mhm.
server storage used to be one department, database used to be one department, then you have to have backup to be having a separate department. Then you had network and security. So network and security had different people under it. So in network and security, some people were good at switching, some people were good at routing. Then they had security parameter configuration, IDS, IPS, and stuff like that. So one guy you bring it on top, and then you bring the lesser the bifurcation in terms of routing, switching, security, and
Sure.
stuff like that. And you give them a team. So then they bring up those four leaders to lead. They have somebody. So that structure makes a lot of difference in terms of building them in the organization, taking bigger roles. So we built that structure, and that was how the whole structure of bringing people to the higher level and the management happened.
Yeah.
And That is one thing we started. They started not resisting, as you rightly said, is after some time you're giving a new responsibility,
Correct. Yes.
which is not what you've been doing regularly. So you do that piece, you guide them, and you take the lead, saying that for this people's work, I'll be responsible. Now, what is the biggest lesson you have learned about leading with purpose? Because you said one point, right? You fought for one guy, that guy left after it. But you lead people with a purpose, and sometimes the purpose gets defeated. Is there anything that you would like to share on a biggest lesson that you've learned about leading people with a purpose?
Yeah, I think purpose binds people together, first of all, right?
Mm,
If your team is able to see the big picture, right, they get aligned.
mm,
Now, most of the time, if you are part of management, you are so damn busy between like 90 calls in a day that you hardly get time to have a 5 minute proper chit chat with your team also. Okay.
mm,
Now,
mm,
I made one routine, right, that every time, twice in a day, we'll go out and have chai together, which will be like a 5-10 minute mental break for me also and for others also. And everybody will tag along. And those
mm.
5-10 minutes, we will just have open conversations.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Now, at that time, even if there is an important project which has come up and I need to brief people, I'll use that time to just tell them, hey, what's the big picture? Why we are doing it? Okay. Why the CEO wants this in this particular manner? You may be thinking that we are doing a job which doesn't make any sense, but yes, there is a purpose behind doing that, and this is the big picture. Now, I have seen a big difference in mindset shift when people know if they are contributing towards something, what is that vision that they are contributing towards. If that vision is lost, that purpose is lost, people feel that, okay, I am just doing my part and going home and sleeping and then coming next morning. I made sure people always, every day, they have something to look forward to, and that made huge change in terms of mindset of people
Mm,
when they're contributing. And it same for me. In fact, when I was as an individual contributor, even if my boss, they were not telling me and they were just giving me some task to do,
mm,
I will
mm.
always ask them, what is this for? So
Yeah.
sometimes they will get irritated also that this guy asks so many questions before he does something, right? But then that was, as I said, I will not keep quiet. I was that kind of personality, and I will understand why I'm doing. And sometimes the boss will say, by the way, just again, example of authentic leadership, Prem. Sometimes your manager may tell you that, hey, I am just doing it. This is a shitty job. I am doing it because my boss has told, and this is a time I'm not questioning my boss. You please deliver it. Okay,
Yeah, yeah,
and I'll just go with it. I'll just go with it. So sometimes it's okay to do that, but it should be 20%, 80%. You should be aligned to something bigger.
wonderful. Or one innovative or out of box idea that completely shift the leadership approach from your standpoint?
See, I don't know if I can call it out of box, right?
Okay.
But what I have seen is when there are, when the CEO is in the room and there are many different leaders at different level in the room, okay? Most people in the room would like to agree with what the CEO is saying,
Hmm. Okay.
right? Because they will not really challenge because of it can be fear, it can be limited belief that they hold themselves, right? Or fear of retaliation or past experience or whatnot. Now, my approach has been, if there is something that I don't agree, which doesn't kind of gel with what I am thinking, I will at least respectfully table my thoughts
Hmm.
and let the group talk about it. And it has happened many times when the business unit head, they have, everybody agreed to what he said, and I had a very contrarian point to put there, and he said, no, I think Rahul is right, let's rethink this strategy, I think we are not doing the right thing. So that validated and gave me confidence that yes, you can be different from the boss, and the boss may appreciate you because you are not being a yes person, but yes, you have to back it up with logic and proper thinking.
I completely agree on that, Rahul, because there are a lot of instances that I faced, and you are pulling out strings where I think those examples are very, very valid. As now, most of the leaders have kind of a vision saying that this has to be done in this format, and when they want us to do, we just do. Over the period, it so happens that they get an assurance saying that if I tell this guy, he will do it, but if he has a questions, he'll come back to us. That
Yes.
trust gets built. What you said, I think that's what you're trying to emphasize. You being an S person, when you think this needs to be validated or done in this format because the leader is telling he has a vision to it, but over the period when you start doing it, you give him a confidence saying that yes, this can be done. But if it cannot be done, the guy will anyway put his disclaimer saying that this cannot be done, or this is the way you can do. Can we look at this piece in a different way? Those pointers will be. I was reading somewhere all saying that in one of the books, it said that if you are doing so many works and most of the things are getting accomplished, people will start asking the right questions saying that this is one thing that I would need your guidance. What do you think? And how do you approach this problem? That way, I think there's a lot of things that you can address.
Yeah.
Coming to that point, what how do you prioritize self-care while leading the high performance teams?
Yeah. Great question. I think this is where the life component also kicks in, right?
Mm,
Uh,
mm,
See, I was working like a madman at some point of time in my career also
mm,
because I
mm.
felt growth will only come if you are working 14, 16 hours a day. And
Okay.
that's how it has to be. Okay. But
Mm,
definitely something else was also suffering, including my health, including my family life, etc. Right. In fact, there was time when I was traveling 7 days out of the base location. Okay.
okay. Mm,
And one day my wife came and told me that your son is going to call you uncle maybe after 2 years if this is the trend. Right. That was a light bulb moment for me because I also realized that this cannot go on and on. Okay.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
somewhere even a leader needs to balance things out. There will be highs and lows.
Mm,
When when the work part is on the lower side, you need to go and enjoy the other side of your life also other than work because work cannot be the only thing. It's like the pie chart which occupies some percentage. Sometimes the pie grows, sometimes that pie shrinks, and you need to take care of the other side of the pie chart, right? And
yeah.
see, the only myth I'm trying to bunk here is, Prem, it's not a straight line though. That every day you will have a work-life balance. No,
Right.
that's not possible.
That's not
There will
possible.
be, in tech, we all know there are go live days, there are production support days, and so on, which happens where your life is totally screwed up. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then there are days when that is gone and you are doing lesson learned and you are just warming up to the new engagement. Those are the low period. You take your time off, you recuperate, you
Yeah.
rejuvenate, and you again come back. So somewhere this has to come and this has to be part of the journey rather than again a one-time event that you do. You have to recalibrate yourself again and again.
No, I think that's a very important point. Now, most of the pointers is that many people are not coached or mentored. Can you discuss a time when mentoring someone changed the perspective as a leader? Because I think what you are looking at more from your this one at your organization transform ahead is more
Yes.
of looking at a coaching stuff, right? Where
Yeah.
we coach leaders. Now, what could be that as change that while you mentor somebody?
Yeah. See, mentoring is basically telling people what they should do,
Mm,
but the lens is your experiential lens, basically, right?
okay.
You
Yeah.
take somebody else's problem statement, put your experience on top of that, you get a solution which works for you, and you pass that advice. Okay, let me give that advice to that person also because we are in the same industry, same kind of field. Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah, but the challenge, Prem, is the these are two different people. You are different and the other person is different. Unless you understand the motivations, it's just like the onion, right? In coaching,
Mm,
we peel the onion and we go deep inside just to understand who the person is.
I think
If you know who the person is,
yeah.
then only anything else will matter, right?
You gave me one pointer here again, Rahul. Is that you said there was I follow Jack Canfield who
Okay.
is very author of a couple of books, right? Chicken Soup for Souls
Yeah,
is
yeah,
one book that he has. He says is people wear a mask, right? And most of the time that masks are revealed when you are mentored because that mask comes out saying that I want to learn something because I was facing something which what I knew and I was wearing that mask. Now you remove that mask, the person is totally different. And
yeah.
he says you bring up people like that, then there is a whole different shift. You understand the kind of people that they are from inside, right?
Correct.
That does not happen till the time you start looking at or talking to them and understanding what is that they are facing of. So
Yes.
how do we cultivate a resilience in the team during these kind of uncertain things? Is there anything that you want to share?
Yeah. See, resilience basically means bouncing back in a difficult
Yeah.
situation. Okay. As simple as that. Now, believe me, some people are naturally geared. They have the genes where they are much more resilient. If you put them under a pressure cooker situation, they don't
Mm,
require any training because somehow, they are good in that. But is it something that you are born with, or it can be trained? The answer is it can be trained. Okay. People can, it's a skill. People can develop resilience as well. But
mm,
you, this interesting book by Bill George, which is True North. Okay. I
okay.
mean, True North is a book I would recommend everybody to read. It's on authentic leadership itself. And
Hmm.
he talks about something called crucibles. Okay.
Okay.
Crucibles basically are those difficult experiences in your career, in your life that you go through.
Mm,
Yeah. While you are going through a crucible moment, you will feel that you are shattered. You don't have the energy to deal with situation. But once you come out of it, and when you
mm,
look back, you see the transformation that you have gone through. I think somewhere everybody has to go through their moments of being part of a crucible experience, and then you come out just by getting coached. Also, I don't think anybody can become more resilient tomorrow just because they went for 5 coaching sessions. Okay, I'll be honest.
no, I was hearing somewhere saying that people get charged going to a session and they start doing them, and after some time they lose that enthusiasm, saying that I cannot do and stuff like that. That's I think one thing. People jump out saying, "Oh, I've learned so many things. I'll start implementing right away." So
Right.
that does not work. Yeah, you will have
Yes.
to practice on a minimal scale of changes, then see how that can be action. And that's I think I take your point. What is one actionable piece you would like to give to leaders to start practicing authenticity today as an authentic leader, right? And that would be my final question for the
Sure.
podcast today. Yeah, and we'll take up some of the pointers of messages that are coming on the chat. So with that, I would like to have your input there, Rahul.
Sure. One easy thing I think leaders can implement tomorrow once they go to office is just watch for how much you speak and how much you listen. Okay.
Okay.
I follow Pareto in all aspects of my life, and I advise people also please follow Pareto 80-20 principle. 80% time you should be listening, 20% time you should be speaking. And this 20% can even go to 10% as you move into CXO level leadership, right?
Hmm.
So I think listening is very important, Prem. When I say listening, it also helps people understand that yes, boss listens to me. I am important in the organization. Even if he doesn't go and pat your back, he or she is going to listen to you. That itself is a big, big thing.
Yeah.
So practice listening more, reflecting more,
Hmm.
and saying little less. I think that's going to change the dynamics of your team, of your organization, big time. Don't dictate stuff. Listen. Let people drive things. Empower them, right? And you will be surprised if you empower people how good they can be. So have that trust.
Yeah, I think Rahul, that's a great point because many of them feel they are not heard. That's what I think.
Yes.
One thing that they should stop doing. I think that way uh, uh, people are more clearer saying that somebody is hearing to me, and that point takes a
It's
lot
one
of.
of the major attrition reason at mid and senior management level. By the way, this is one of the major ones.
True point on that, Rahul. 100% on that. Rahul, I have three. I have chat coming up here. I'll bring up the questions that I see. Some coming up about four questions that are there.
Sure.
One is Parivil Rodgis. I think. I'm not spelling it right.
Previl
Sorry.
Rodriguez.
Yeah. So he says happy to see you. That's I think one pointer that he is mentioning.
Thanks,
Then I have
Previl.
Pallavi, who's our one of our speakers in our podcast. So she says, how can we handle vulnerability in a remote roles where people have will to cover their genuine connection? I'm asking in terms of leadership roles. Could you please share inputs? regarding its results to a culture cultivative better understanding of it. Yeah, that's the question that we have from Pallavi.
Okay. Just give me one moment to read it.
Yeah,
I'm asking in terms of leadership roles.
yeah,
I mean, what she's saying is, how can leaders create an environment where people can be vulnerable in remote roles? Is that understanding right?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
See, I mean, there is a very famous model when it comes to team building, right? The Tuckman's five-stage model, where
Mm,
it starts with forming, it goes to storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. Okay, that's the five-stage Tuckman model. I
mm,
think leaders have a definite role to play in the first couple of stages, where they may have to be a little more, direct in terms of how teams should collaborate, putting together the standard operating procedures, or the the terms of engagement when you are part of a remote team, because remote team differ not just by location. There can be cultural differences, there can be language differences, there can be time zone differences. So how do we respect each of these boundaries and still stay part of a team, right? So I think at the beginning, when we are at the forming and the storming stage, a leader has a predominant role to play, where they should create that kind of environment, number one, which sounds psychologically safe to people, that okay, I can call out certain things during the meeting which I am not able to solve or do, and ask for help, etc., rather than thinking that as a shortcoming, so that they can get picked up during their performance review and said, hey, you are not able to do this and you called it out during the call, right? So we will penalize you and your rating gets suffered. So that kind of culture of fear of the culture of fear should not be there. Leaders should create that safe environment for people to be open, and they are able to call out issues and support that they require. I think once people form that amount of trust with each other, they get to a performing stage, and once they are performing, I think leader has a minimal role to play at that point of time, because see, leaders should make themselves as redundant as soon as possible. Okay, a good leader will be redundant faster, and a bad leader would be there forever. Okay,
yeah.
that's how I measure leadership, especially in these environments.
I think she has another point which is completely agree on the self care is a threshold to create better understanding and transparent communication. And the other question she has is self care is a stepping stone for impactful leadership. Self care is an effective toolkit to resolve and be well aligned to the progress. That's the pointers that she has.
Sure.
Lokesh has one point. He says leadership is not to hold the people, it's to guide the people the right path and see more opportunities.
Yeah.
So to
See,
this, yeah,
no, I mean, I like the point which Lokesh has put in. Okay, but I'll put a bit of context around it. I cannot make this statement as a general statement across the life cycle of the project. Okay,
mm, mm,
initially, right, initially people want the leader to actually lead the path also,
mm,
because of the uncertainty in terms of what they have to do, what are the roles and responsibility, the conflict which happens within team members, and so on, right? So leaders do have to create that roadmap for people, plus also hold accountable for what role and responsibility that they have been picked up for. So that accountability part is very important. Yeah. But when things are in a autopilot mode, when people are now empowered, they are doing everything right, and leader, as I said, they have to become redundant, right? They should just inspire them. If there is an issue, they should be a guide and mentor to them, right? And let the team run the show. I think that's very important what Lokesh has said, but I will just say that it depends on the project life cycle and the context in which we are operating in.
exactly. With that, we have the questions done, Rahul. I think anything coming up on the chat or the period, we'll look at and take your advice in responding to them. I think with
Sure.
that, we have come to the end of the session. Thank you for being a part of us, Rahul. It's been
Thanks a
great
lot.
having you here. And to the audience, do follow us on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Insta. Hope you found this discussion valuable. And thanks for joining us today on LinkedIn Live. Our next podcast would be on the 17th, Tuesday, and we will come with a new speaker and a new topic at 6:30 p.m. IST. Looking forward to see you again. Good day. Bye for now. Thank you, Rahul.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Prem. Thanks everyone.